Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I'd like to do another what if video in Wings of Fire. What if Sundew was taken over by the Othermind? This video is suggested to me by Noobs Play and IZ Sketch, so thank you so much to them for giving me this idea. This is basically my excuse to rewrite a lot of the Flames of Hope, and I'm going to have a lot of fun with this. Before we start the video, huge shout out to my patrons, Crazy Roblox Man and LordIsopod. Links to their social medias will be in the description, so please go check them out. Also, huge spoiler warning for the Flames of Hope. If you haven't read the book yet, do not watch this video. Seriously, it is going to spoil everything for you. This is originally going to be a complete rewrite of the Flames of Hope, but I decided a little bit through that would honestly be too much work. So I decided to start this around the time that everyone starts splitting up. This what if is taking place right after Lynx and Sundew went to go look for Pineapple, Keebly, and Moonwatcher, so just Luna and the others are left. Also, Luna's personality is going to be a little different in this AU, mainly because that's how I thought she was going to behave in the book. Also, Freedom and Cottonmouth are not going to be included in this. The Othermind is just a brainless plant, and a lot is going to be different from the book. Anyways, now that is all cleared up, let's get into the video. Luna hated being invisible. It wasn't just the clumsiness that came with not being able to see her own claws, but rather the sense of loneliness it brought along with it. It often left her wondering what was real and what was in her head, almost as if the voices around her weren't real. After all, no dragons seemed to be attached to them. Luna often wondered whether or not they were just the voices in her head, trying to reassure her to continue. To find Blue and Swordtail, she reminded herself. To save my family. Being the destined Flame Silk savior wasn't as fun as it sounded. Luna loved the idea of saving the world and freeing her tribe from oppression. But actually doing it was a million times harder than it sounded. There was no step-by-step manual on how to defeat Wasp, and the Book of Clearsight was practically useless now. Luna sighed softly to herself, sprawling her wings on the smooth surface beneath her. She cast an occasional glance at the cave door, watching the rain fall gracefully from the sky. It's almost like the world is crying, too. The greatest thing about not having any dragons be able to see you is that Luna could frown as much as she wanted to. She didn't have to have a mask of positivity on her face, just in her tone of voice. Luna could let the tears flow freely from her snout without having to worry who could have seen her cry. She liked that feeling, but not the emptiness that came with it. Luna let herself exhale quietly, fidgeting with the spinnerets on her wrist to distract herself. Apparently another dragon had heard the soft noise, as Luna heard Talons awkwardly shuffling into her room of the cave. She almost thought she had imagined it, as a long silence accompanied the brief movement. It's lonely without them, Cricket's voice said. Her tone was dull, and Luna had the feeling she had just been crying as well. Yeah, Luna replied, trying to keep her response brisk. It's not that she didn't like Cricket. It's just, with everything going on right now, who says she can be trusted? Cricket hadn't proven herself to be loyal to their cause, although Blue seemed to trust her. Honestly, Blue is the kind of dragon to trust a gigantic scorpion wielding knives if it said it wasn't evil. Luna never liked the Hivewings, even from her hatching day. She learned quickly that her tribe was supposed to be inferior, and the Hivewings were born with that mentality. None of them could change. It was just impossible. So why waste time thinking that this one Hivewing in particular was actually different and wanted to? Cricket either wasn't satisfied with her short reply or just wished to talk more because she piped up again. What do you think Blue would do right now? The question totally caught Luna off guard, and she stopped her mind's repetitive wandering. What do you mean? She replied, curiosity finding its way into her voice. Well, Cricket began, what would he do if he were here with us right now? He never was one to have any actual plans, but I have the feeling he would know what to do. Cricket stopped talking for so long that Luna nearly thought she had walked away, but she finally spoke again. I just miss him. Luna could hear sniffles coming from across the cave, followed by the sound of Cricket sitting down on the cave floor. Yeah, Luna began. Me too. The two sat in silence for a moment, until Luna finally found the courage to respond properly. I think Blue would tell us to keep going. He's always been the kind of dragon to see the positives, and it's a trait I've always wished I had. Without him being here, I'd try to consider how he would interpret things. It's a way that helps me look at the positives, you know? Cricket stifled a sob, and Luna assumed she had nodded. Yeah, you're right. He would tell us to keep going. For the first time ever, Luna felt sympathy for the odd Hivewing. She let her body tense up with the thought and tried shaking it off. A Hivewing couldn't change. They were all the same. They just had to be. So why aren't you thinking the same thing for this one? The thought lingered in her mind, even when another dragon stepped in the room. Ren told me to come and get you guys, Sky's voice said, and Luna sat up eagerly. At least now she'd have something to do. Luna and Cricket followed the voice of Sky into the next room of the cave, following him deeper and deeper until they could hear Ren's impatient voice arguing with Bullfrog. We have to do something. We can't just mope around all day. Besides, Sky and I are coming here to help you guys, not just sit here and watch as the world gets taken over by that creepy mind control. But as I was saying, Bullfrog interrupted, we don't have a plan. Sundew and Lynx are off looking for Keebly, Moonwatcher, and Pineapple, and we can't do much without them. Ren angrily exhaled, but managed to calm herself down. I suppose you're right in that sense, but who knows if they're ever even coming back? The words stung Luna more than she had anticipated, though the thought had been plaguing everyone for weeks. What if they had already been taken over by the Othermind? Luna never wanted to consider that possibility. She constantly stood outside the cave entrance, hoping to hear the wing beats of their friends. All she was met with was the sounds of rain pouring in response, or just the emptiness of the world outside them. It seemed like the entire world had stopped, and the thought caused a shiver to go down Luna's spine. If they really are under Wasp's control, that means no more of Keebly's brilliant plans, no more prophecies from Moon, no more tsunami to protect us, no Sundew to destroy the breath of evil when we get to the abyss, and no more Lynx to stand by and encourage everybody, and no more of Pineapple's cheerfulness. They just can't be gone. Sundew and Lynx are probably flying here right now with Wasp's head on a platter and all my friends safe. Deep down, Luna knew it probably wasn't the case. What was taking them so long? As though to answer in thought, Ren responded. Look, they told us that if they didn't come back in a few days, then to move on. It's been 2 weeks, and there's still no sign of them. Something had to have gone wrong. We can't just sit here and wait for help to come. We at least have to try to do something. Ren impatiently tapped the floor with her foot, and all the dragons around her were at a loss for words. Everyone knew what she was saying was true, though nobody was brave enough to admit it. Their friends were gone. Okay, fine, Luna replied. But shouldn't we leave some kind of message in case they come here later? They'd be worried if there was just no sign of us. Yeah, I think that's a good idea, Bullfrog added. Sky hummed in agreement, and Cricket seemed to have nodded, forgetting that the invisibility spell was still hiding everyone from sight. Okay, then it's settled. Tomorrow we are going into the cave system to find the abyss ourselves. What will we do when we find it? Sky asked with obvious nervousness in his voice. We'll kill whatever ugly plant is inside of it and free all the tribes. It shouldn't be that hard, right? Apparently brainstorming how to kill an evil sentient plant that gave Queen Wasp her mind control powers was a lot harder than it sounded. Luna tossed and turned all night, trying to come up with a way to destroy the Othermind without causing further damage. If I burn it with my flame silk, the smoke could just rise to the surface and take over all of us. But if we cut it open, who knows what could happen? Maybe the vines are so thick that dragon claws couldn't even tear them apart. Luna turned to her side and could make out the soft sound of Cricket's breathing, almost as though she could see the Highwing's chest rise and fall. When we turn visible again, I'm never going to take sight for granted ever again. I want to see another dragon more than ever, even if what I see is Highwing scales. Touching a dragon's scales was completely different than actually seeing the vibrant colors of their scales or looking into the sparkling eyes of her friends. Come to think of it, Luna hadn't actually seen another dragon smile in weeks, even before they had gone into hiding. Luna let her eyes close as she drifted off into sleep, though she wished she hadn't. Luna opened her eyes to find herself in a room full of vines, though it resembled Wasp's hive. This what has become of the hive since I was gone? She wondered, letting herself wander around the space. The throne Queen Wasp would normally sit on was overgrown with vines, each one thick and slithering its way towards the floor. There were no hivings in sight, not even Wasp herself. The throne was empty, with only the vines cushioned onto it. Suddenly, a voice aroused Luna out of her dazed thoughts. So weak and so fragile it slithered, almost beckoning Luna into the darkness of her vision. It was almost as though everything was slightly blurred and hazy, and the silking tried to blink through it. Through the corner of her eye, Luna could see the shadow of Queen Wasp on the wall. She shivered instinctively, searching for where she was, but to no avail. They're wrong in placing their hopes on you, Wasp's voice replied, echoing off the walls of the hive. Luna stood there, dumbfounded, almost rooted in place. Wasp tauntingly tisked, then continued to speak. Am I dead? She thought to herself, shivering with the thought. I've seen inside their heads. Blue and Swordtail believe that you can actually save them. It's such a pity, really. Do you know how many dragons are counting on you? Too many. I wonder what they think when they realize that they're placing their faith in a silken dragon that doesn't have the guts to kill in order to save a life. Luna felt her heart pick up, and she itched to be able to move. It was only then that she realized she couldn't, and she looked down in a complete panic. The vines from Wasp's throne had snaked their way towards her, holding her talons to the floor. She tried to squirm and evade their grasp, but she was frozen in place. You're not real. Can't be, Luna said, almost breathlessly. Does it matter if I'm real? Wasp's twisted laugh filled the throne room, and Luna swore the vines seemed to be laughing as well, twitching against her talons as though they were chuckling. You're not a hero, you're a coward. I've been inside your head too, Luna. When you fail, I will take over your body, maybe even rule in it myself. It would be cruel to have you watch your own body hurt those you love, with you being trapped in a useless body you can't even control. Luna's breathing came out ragged and strained, watching the vines slowly inch their way closer to her midsection. I can't wait to see their faces when they figure out that it was you that let them down. You're wrong, Luna managed to get out, struggling to breathe as the vine wrapped itself around her neck. The throne room seemed to become hazier than ever, and she felt her eyes drooping. Am I? Wasp replied, suddenly appearing before her. She looked older and more tired than Luna had remembered, with obvious bags under her eyes. Wasp's tongue flicked in and out of her mouth, though a smile creeped its way onto her face. You know deep down that you'll never be good enough. You know that everyone's hope lies in you, and that you'll fail. When I kill you, I'll use your corpse as a puppet and hang it from the ceiling. That way Blue and Swordtail will have to view it every day of their lives, till their bodies die, and they are of no use to me anymore. Even with your wondrous gift of flame silk, you'll still never have it in you. You'll disappoint them, just like you have your whole life. You've been nothing but a disappointment, and you'll die as one. You're just trying to stop me, Luna croaked out, the vine squeezing her throat harder than ever. Another one grew out of it, slowly making its way to Luna's head and wrapping itself around it. A demented smile flickered on Wasp's face, and Luna's vision had finally faded. You're going to let them all down. You're not going to have the guts to kill your own friends. Wasp's voice echoed, darkness overtaking Luna's entire vision. It was just a dream, she tried reassuring herself. Wasp wasn't real. It was just a nightmare your insecurities made up. Even though Luna had jolted awake early in the morning due to the twisted nightmare, she couldn't shake off the feeling it left her. I wish Sundew was still here. She could be the one to destroy the Othermind and save everybody. That way I don't have to use my flame silk to hurt anybody. But is what Nightmare Wasp said going to be a reality? Am I really going to disappoint everybody? Luna looked down at her claws, though realized she couldn't see them. In order to reassure herself she was even still there, Luna spun a thread of soft, glowing flame silk, holding it carefully in her palm. It was almost like the light of her flame silk was the only thing she had left to offer. Cricket spoke suddenly, snapping Luna out of her spiraling thoughts. She was almost grateful for the distraction, though tried telling herself she wasn't. Hey, are you awake? Luna nodded, though remembered to respond with a single hum of acknowledgement. I just wanted to say, thank you for what you told me yesterday. The words were soft, though genuine. It was almost said in a whisper, and Luna had to struggle to pick up what Cricket had said. She felt a wave of guilt hit her, and she couldn't even find an excuse to give herself. Maybe Cricket is different from the other hivewings. It's no problem, Luna replied truthfully. After a moment of silence, she continued, finally finding the words. I'm sorry if I've been avoiding you. I've just had a lot on my mind. Don't worry, it's okay. Losing your brother and most loved dragon in the entire world is probably the worst thing ever. I can't imagine going through all that pain at once. Especially because it probably feels like the weight of the world is on your shoulders, especially with Sundew and Moonwatcher gone. Luna had never felt so understood by another dragon before, and she was speechless. Cricket was just letting her feelings out so easily. With even all of her pain, she was still able to comfort Luna. I know how much you love Blue, she began. But you will see him again. I promise. Cricket's voice was filled with a new sense of enthusiasm. Do you really mean it? Luna nodded her head, looking towards the empty spot where Cricket's voice was coming from. I promise. The sun had finally begun to rise, its warm glow radiating off the small forest below. Luna allowed her scales to soak in the sunlight, stretching her wings one final time. This is the most beautiful place I've ever seen. I don't want to leave it. Luna stood on the ledge of the cave, taking one last glance at the gorgeous scenery below. Ren had told them the plan. They're going to find the abyss and search through the cave system today. Nobody knew how deep it was into the cave, but they planned on following each other as far up as they could go. No more sunlight? No more flying? We'll all just be compacted into one tight cave corridor for who knows how long. Can't believe how much I've taken my life for granted. I should have spent more time sitting on the webs, watching the sunrise and staring down at the savannah below. I hope we see more of those reading monkeys, Cricket piped in. Reading monkeys? Scar replied confusedly. She means humans, Ren replied, and Luna got the impression she was putting her paws on her hips again. Sorry, right, humans. Bullfrog led the way into the cave, with everyone following suit. They wandered through the cave for what seemed like hours, and Luna's talons hurt from constantly stepping on jagged rocks. Everyone seemed like they were about to collapse from their sore feet, and every path seemed to blend into one. Wait, do you guys see that? Sky asked, and everyone turned around. Luna saw it as soon as he pointed it out. A little seedling had poked its way through a crack in a rock, with little petals barely sticking out of it. If there's life in this cave, maybe that means we can survive, too. Cricket let out a whoa of surprise and dashed towards it, staring at the little plant closely. Maybe we could use it to signal for Sundew? Sky suggested. No way, Ren argued. If she really is taken over by the Othermind, can't Wasp just have Sundew use her leaf speak to have the plant give up our location? That is a good point, Bullfrog added skeptically. Even though Luna could not see them, she had the feeling everyone was looking up at her for what to do. Her heart raced with the thought. I mean, I guess we could try? Who knows if Wasp would even go down here anyways? It would just be some random ravine to her. If Sundew would know that we are trying to leave her a message for her, if we give it to the plant, maybe she and Lynx can find us and be sure we're safe. An apprehensive Wren finally agreed, and they gave the little seedling a message in case Sundew were to come down here. We're going to find the abyss. Luna had become so tired of walking that she hadn't even paid attention to the fact that the group had stopped, and she almost bumped into Bullfrog. He didn't even notice, but pointed out his discovery. I can see something through the crack in the wall. It looks like a civilization of some sorts. That's weird. How can any dragon live in such a closed-off space? Ren asked, trying to climb on a Sky's back to get a better look. Sure enough, Luna could see an entire mini-town of humans. Some of them were kicking a ball back and forth to each other, while the others of the group seemed to be carrying baskets full of fish. Luna hadn't seen this many humans at once, and watching them play wrestle on the stone floor of the cave seemed oddly dragon-like. Even though she couldn't see Cricket, she knew her jaw was probably on the floor. She was trying so hard not to explode with all the questions she was refraining from asking. Cricket eventually gave in, blurting a million questions at once. How do they live down here? Do all reading monkeys, I mean humans, live in underground cave systems like this? Did they take this lifestyle so they could avoid dragons? But pantolin dragons don't seem to fly too far from the hives, and I'm freaking out right now. Luna erupted into giggles and nearly toppled over. Well, why don't we go see what they're up to? Sky asked. Are you crazy? Sky, not all humans just casually talk to dragons. I'm pretty sure I'm like the only one. Plus, they would totally freak out if they heard voices talk to them without anybody attached to them. Remember, we're invisible? Oh, right. But that doesn't mean we can't take a closer look, right? Luna replied, looking through the crack hopefully. They might know where the abyss is, and maybe we could follow them there. Doesn't it seem risky? The group seemed split, although there were no other ways to go but towards the village. Do not startle them. Especially you, Sky. I have a feeling you get a little too close and bump into one of them, nearly giving them a heart attack. No, I wouldn't, Sky said defensively. Luna rolled her eyes dramatically, even though nobody could see. She finally felt her muscles loosen for the first time in ages, and allowed herself to actually get excited about seeing where the humans were headed. They might lead us straight to the abyss. But what are we going to do if we get there? An impatient wasp paced around the floor of the throne room, projecting her consciousness into faraway hive guards in order to get her daily report on their silkwing prisoners. Once we have Sundew, this whole continent is going to be mine. The mystery dragons she had taken captive on the beach were to be arriving shortly, and Wasp couldn't wait to get her talons in them. What she had seen in the silkwing, they weren't like any dragon tribe she had ever seen before. Wasp couldn't wait to tear them apart, scale by scale, with her own talons. Almost as though they had been reading her mind, the surviving Hivewing guards flew in, carrying the limp forms of dragons in their claws. Wasp stopped pasting and slowly stalked her way towards them, tilting her head with curiosity. These are certainly not hybrids. There's something better, she thought to herself, flicking her tongue in and out of her mouth with newfound glee. My playthings. Another dragon was set down next to them, and the sound of a thump alerted her to it. Wasp slithered towards it, poking at the invisible dragon. Dragon who can turn invisible. The voice of one of her guards snapped her out of the trance she was in as she stared at the mystery dragons. We just got word that 2 dragons attacked one of our patrol troops in the Upper East. No signs indicate that it was the young Flamesilk, but nobody could identify who it was. The 2 dragons were invisible, Your Majesty. A small stream of smoke issued from her nostrils, though Wasp calmed herself. Let them come. I have big plans in store for when they do. And with that, Wasp glared down at the unconscious, paralyzed dragons below her feet, and allowed a wicked smile to spread across her face. Luna excitedly creeped her way across some boulders, watching the nearby humans out of the corner of her eye. They looked so carefree, completely oblivious of the horrors that were occurring overhead. She wondered how long they had been down here. Everyone was staying silent, watching their steps carefully so no one would be alerted to their location. Having several massive dragons move stealthily was a nearly impossible feat to accomplish, especially in such a compacted area. Nevertheless, they creeped along the corner of the cave, watching for any signs that may indicate the one of the humans was headed somewhere. This is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life, Cricket said, letting the excitement overtake her. Luna could feel Cricket's body shake with excitement, having to use an absurd amount of self-control to not bolt straight towards them and open the books they had in their paws. Yeah, I've never seen a human village like this before, she whispered in response. Bullfrog led the way, inching closer to one of their huts and sniffing the cooked fish that was being made inside. Suddenly, Sky let out a squeal of joy as a small lizard skittered across the rocky floor and started jumping towards it to get a better look. Wren tried shushing him, but he had already skidded across the rocks, hopping towards it. Luna saw him poke at it, and the lizard suddenly jumped backwards, scurrying into a crack in a nearby rock. A look of disappointment was shown on Sky's face, and he drooped his wings. Sky, they could have seen you, Wren hissed. I'm sorry, but we're invisible, remember? Fear took hold of Luna, its hold tightening on her chest. Sky was visible. When she turned back to look at her friends, they were too. A young human turned to look at the voices and suddenly dropped his ball, letting out a squeak of fear. The others looked up, dropping whatever they were holding. Luna, Sky, Wren, Cricket, and Bullfrog were visible, and all their hearts nearly stopped at once. And chaos erupted amongst the scavengers. Wasp carefully held a slim vine of the Othermind in her talons, watching it wriggle slightly. She turned around to face her new prisoners, and crushed the tiny vine in her claw, causing a green smoke to rise from it. The smoke seemed to be magnetized towards them, and they inhaled it, causing each of their eyes to glow a bright white. Wasp smiled to herself, then projected her consciousness into each of them. A mysterious blue one. A weird scorpion dragon. Some kind of white, odd-looking one. And our secret invisible guest. The invisible heap on the floor intrigued her, though Wasp was unable to undo the effects of invisibility from inside their head. She took note of each of their strengths, excited to get to experiment with them as part of her growing numbers. The question she had in her mind was, where did they come from? They certainly couldn't be hybrids. They looked to be different tribes entirely. Suddenly, the back doors to Wasp's hive burst open, the wind of an ongoing storm rushing in. Wasp turned back to look at them, though she couldn't see any dragons. Some of her hivings were crumpling to the floor in pain, and she switched to one of her most burly guards and stabbed one of the invisible figures. Wasp saw bleeds of blood drip onto the floor and continued having her guards fight what seemed to be thin air. Until finally, the 2 mysterious figures had been tackled to the ground, squirming under the hold of several hivewings. Wasp turned back to her regular body, then stalked closer to them. Well, who do we have here? Are you on a rescue mission to save your friends? Wasp teasingly asked. She only got a grunt in response, and frowned. Wasp carefully picked up one last vine of the Othermind and held it in her talons, then crushed it in front of their faces like she had done for the others. The 2 dragons coughed, though eventually their bodies went lax. Friendship seems to be the thing that kills everybody these days, Wasp mockingly sighed. In this world, you need to have the guts to stay alive yourself. Otherwise, you're never going to survive. She had her guards release them and went into the minds of the intruders. Feeling around on their bodies, she noticed 2 armbands on one of them. Moth curiously tapped them, trying to remove the bands from the arms of the figure. When she did, the dragons suddenly became visible. "Sundew the Leafwing," she muttered, then turned to the other. "I don't know who you are, but I'm going to have fun with you." Moth grinned and narrowed her eyes at Sundew. "I finally caught you." She could swear she saw a hint of fear flicker in Sundew's eyes, but only for a moment. Panic erupted, with humans scurrying around and squeaking loudly at each other. Ren tried to calm them down by jumping off of Sky's back and running towards them, but the sight seemed to confuse them even more. Luna anxiously spun a little ball of harmless flame silk, twisting it between her talons. She stood there, motionless, as some of the small scavengers started throwing berries at them. She looked over towards Cricket, and a wave of relief hit her when she was actually able to look into her eyes. It doesn't matter that it's a hive wing, she thought to herself. Some of the little humans started to run towards Ren, while others grabbed their fishing spears and tried throwing them at each of the dragons. Bullfrog just stared, tilting his head as one bounced right off his scales. Sky spoke something to them in their language, trying to reassure them, but it only caused more panic. Humans were trying to scurry into their huts or escape through cracks in the rocks, for Ren ordered the others to stand guard at those spots. "We can't have them run away now. We need to know where the abyss is." Luna bolted towards where a very young human was headed, and he squeaked with surprise. However, his gaze switched to the tiny little ball of flame silk she had cupped in her talons, and he stood looking at it, almost hypnotized by the light. He's so young. If he were a dragon, he wouldn't be soon after his hatching. He tried to touch it with his tiny paws, and Luna jerked backwards, motioning toward him to stop. The human whimpered, then crossed his arms and raised his head. He squeaked something to himself, though immediately started giggling at his defiance. Luna was so perplexed that she didn't even notice his mother running towards him, angrily scooping him in her arms. She assumed she had scolded something at him, and he pointed towards the little ball of flame silk in Luna's claws. It only seemed to scare her more, and she backed away, scrambling around the village to find a way out. Ren had managed to climb out of the fountain towards the center of the village, and shouted something in human. All of them froze, looking up at her. While Ren was giving some kind of a message to the scavengers, Luna looked back at Cricket, who was trying her hardest not to scoop a nearby human in her claws. Her eyes were full of curiosity, darting around to get a good look at the way these humans lived. "It's so nice to actually see a dragon again," Luna thought, even if she does have high-wing scales. One smaller scavenger started adorably punching Bullfrog's leg, and he just lifted it, confused. There seemed to be some arguing, as though some of the humans started to raise their voices at Ren, and she only responded with more yelling. "Come on, Ren. Try to make peace with them. That way they can show us the abyss without us having to force them to." Luna didn't want to hurt the little humans. Looking back at the small one that clung himself to her, he couldn't take his eyes off her glowing scales. Apparently what Ren had told them seemed to calm the majority of them down, because a few of the humans started to wander towards the dragons. They probably haven't seen a dragon before, depending on how long they've been down here. Wonder if they know we're not just brainless animals. Ren slid off her fountain, making her way towards Luna and her friends. She pointed at each of them individually, and Luna assumed she was introducing them to the villagers. They're kind of adorable, actually, especially that little one. She winked at him, and he jumped in surprise, climbing onto his mother's shoulders to get a better view of her. Luna giggled softly to herself, then turned towards Ren. "All right, I told them we're friendly. Some of them don't believe us, but they don't really have any other options," Ren said. "Well, I look scary," Sky interjected, trying to puff up his chest. "I'm a totally scary dragon." He growled with mock aggression, and Ren only face-palmed, ignoring him. "Anyways," she continued, "I haven't told them about us wanting to find the abyss, or what's going on the surface. I think that would spook them too much. I just told them we're hiding out here, and that we won't stay long." "I need to learn how to speak human," Cricket said suddenly, her talons twitching with excitement. "I could give you some pointers." Luna hadn't even noticed the little human had approached her again, and he wrapped his little paws around her leg, then mumbled something she couldn't understand. She lifted her leg, then carefully cupped the scavenger in her talons. "He's so small." His eyes were drooping, and he chirped something quietly to himself, rubbing his eyes. Luna gently placed him on her back, and he held on tightly to her neck, falling asleep. Luna felt his soft, even breathing on her neck, and she sat down on the stone floor as quietly as possible, trying not to wake him. His mother looked terrified at first, though noticed that Luna was harmless and seemed a little less paranoid. She still had an eye on her, though Luna didn't seem to care. I think these are going to be all right, Luna thought, looking at her friends. Bullfrog was letting some tiny scavengers climb on his back, though he didn't seem to notice or care. Cricket was sitting down next to another human, carefully holding the tiny book they had in their paws. They beamed positively at her, then climbed up onto her shoulder to point at certain words. Ren and Sky were playing with some of the younger ones, and Sky rolled around on the floor with them. Luna smiled, glancing at the precious cargo on her back. I wouldn't trade this moment for anything, she whispered softly to herself, letting her eyes close as she drifted off to a peaceful sleep. Wasp sat on her throne, twitching her tail as possibilities flickered through her mind. My own clear sight, she thought as she looked over towards the now visible dragon. Her black scales nearly blended into the shadows. The first time Wasp had gone into the black dragon's body, she was met with the rushed thoughts of the hive-wings in the room as they panicked, unable to move under her control. She nearly gave herself a heart attack, immediately jumped out of the body and back into her own. With some experimentation, she had figured out that this dragon was a mind reader. Wasp smiled to herself, her twisted smile spewed across her face. But now I have Sundew, the one dragon I can use to spread the breath of evil to the entire continent. She looked down at the leaf wing, her eyes blank and white, muscles tense. The most powerful leaf speak on Pantala, and a mind reader in my possession. This is going to be fun. Suddenly, Wasp's gaze flickered towards the pouch around Sundew's neck, and she slid off her throne, fixated on it. Curious as to what could be inside, Wasp ripped it off her neck with her own talons, then opened the small drawstring bag, dumping its contents into her claws. A map. But this isn't Pantala. The realization hit her almost instantly, excitement overtaking her. There's another continent out there, and she had the map that would lead her right to it. Luna woke up slowly, stretching her arms and legs. She yawned quietly to herself, then looked back at the small scavenger, who seemed to be wide awake. He was playing with the ball of silk Luna had spun the night before, rolling it across her scales and giggling. Luna smiled, then patted his head softly. Suddenly, the ground beneath Luna's talons began to shake. The nearby scavengers started to run around in a panic. Ren helped Sky lift some of them onto his back, and each of the dragons shielded as many of them as possible. Stalactites and chunks of rock began to crumple down from the ceiling. Humans were shrieking and trying to cover their heads, with each of the remaining dragons trying to pull them out of the way. The little human she had on her back began to cry, and Luna lowered him into her claws, covering his head with her wings. Some others began to seek shelter next to Luna, each of them huddling close to one another and crying. Hey, it'll be okay, she whispered to them, trying to wipe their tears. The young human that had been on her back before sniffled, then looked her in the eye. Luna, he mumbled in the imitation of a dragon. Her heart nearly stopped, then eventually swelled with pride. He knows my name. I wonder if Ren taught him that. Dragon, he said, then put the two words together. Luna Dragon. Luna nodded her head, smiling down at him. He seemed happy that he had made her proud, and started to teach the other children how to do the same. She looked up, watching Bullfrog shield some nearby humans with his wings, though a massive rock fell from the ceiling. It hit him in the head, and he skidded across the floor, dropping the humans from his hold. Cricket was trying to make herself as small as possible in the corner, holding a human in her claws and closing her eyes tightly. Sky and Ren were fumbling around, trying to make sure everyone in the village could get to cover. After several long, tense moments, the crumbling of the cave seemed to stop, though it had nearly collapsed in on itself. What could have possibly done that? Everyone stood, frozen in place, almost as though they feared the rumbling would continue and the cave would swallow them whole. When nothing happened, everyone finally allowed themselves to move. Cricket opened her eyes slowly, looking down at the human she had in her hands. She let them go and they scurried towards their family, squeaking wildly to them. Sky made sure everyone was all right. Meanwhile, Ren started speaking to the scavengers in their language. Hey, it's okay, Luna whispered to the little one she had wrapped around her leg. The shaking is gone now. All the young humans had rushed back towards their parents, but he had stayed, holding onto her tight. Luna Dragon! Cricket cautiously approached Luna, her claws shaking with anxiety. What was that? I don't know, but we're in danger. We need to get the humans to show us where the abyss is right now. Ren had spoken to the humans for a long time, though they looked apprehensive about whatever she had planned. Luna and Cricket stood there anxiously, occasionally casting glances back at Bullfrog, who was still injured from the falling stalactites. Sky was at his side, making sure he was okay. Luna had never seen the odd-looking Skywing so upset or nervous before. Seeing such anxiety in a regularly happy face, it gives you the feeling that we're never going to survive this. I wonder if this is how Cricket felt when she met up with me after I lost Blue and Swordtail. I wonder if this is how everyone feels about me now. Ren had finally finished and made her way over towards Luna and Cricket. They know where the abyss is, but they're really against us going there. They said it's super creepy. One of their ancestors made a deal with it a long time ago, and ever since then has been taking human sacrifices. The other mind is stronger than we anticipated. I'm not going to survive. Cricket inhaled softly, then opened her eyes. We have to. The fate of Pantala depends on us. We can't just lie around and wait for the world to be saved. We have to do it ourselves. There's no hero that can save the day like we thought Sundew would. She's gone. I spent a while thinking about this. Thinking about if I was good enough to have the weight of the world on my shoulders, to have all the faith put on me. If you would have asked me the question before all this Othermind mess, I would have said no. I've never thought of myself as a hero, and I don't think I ever will. Sure, I'm not brave like Tsunami or have mystical powers like Sundew. That doesn't mean I don't want to try to save everyone. I'd rather die trying than die knowing I never had the guts to try. Luna was shocked by Cricket's speech and felt her heart flutter with a new sense of confidence. She's right. Ren had clearly not expected such enthusiasm, but it seemed to motivate her as well. All right. The humans told me that the abyss lies to the far north of the underground lake. It's a massive ravine in the ground, seemingly bottomless. There's a guardian of the abyss that you might have to go through in order to get to the other mind, but they don't know exactly what's down there. There's so many risks, and most of the journey is unknown. Are you sure you want to risk your lives over a maybe? Luna swelled up her chest and nodded her head. Listening to Cricket's speech, I never thought I could do this alone. I've been spending so much time worrying about how I would have to save everyone myself, but now I finally realize something. I'm not alone. I have all of you here with me. We really are Talons United. Or, well, pause in your case, Ren. Ren smiled, the first genuine one in a long time. Then let's do it. The next hour was spent devising a plan. Sky and Ren are going to stay back and tend to Bullfrog's wounds and watch over the humans in case Wasp sent our troops into the cave system to protect the breath of evil. Meanwhile, Luna and Cricket would venture towards the abyss alone. That way, if anything happened, the whole group wouldn't be taken. Hey, are you ready for this? Luna asked, nudging Cricket's arm with her wing. If I'm being honest, not really. But if it means saving our friends, then yes. I would do anything. I've just got to be the bravest I've ever been. Huh. That's a great way of looking at it. Cricket smiled, then took a look at the carved map with the abyss that was on one of the stone walls. Just through these few cave trails, and then we should reach it, she muttered, tracing her talons across the grooves in the map. All right, Luna began. If we're not back in 2 days, then something went wrong. When we're down there, I'll try figuring out some kind of way to destroy the heart or brain of the Othermind. I'm not sure how. My flame silk would just burn its smoke up to the surface, infecting all of us down here. But we'll figure out a way. Ren nodded, sliding off the Sky's back. She patted Luna on the leg, smiling up at her. You and Cricket are sacrificing so much for this. It would be so easy to just live down here, not having to worry about what was happening on the surface. But you two are brave enough to risk your own lives to protect everyone. If anyone would have told me the dragons actually had emotions before I met Sky, I would have never believed them. But you two? She pointed at Luna and Cricket. You're different from Wasp. You're different from every other power-hungry dragon in Pyra or Panala. No matter what happens down there, don't lose your hearts. Luna let tears flow down her cheeks and watched as Cricket wiped her wet glasses. Of course. Luna looked over towards the small human she had protected, the one that made Luna's heart more tender than ever. Ren told me his name was Bat, she reminded herself. Luna moved towards Bat, and his face lit up when he saw her. Luna Dragon! He shouted, running straight towards her. She smiled, embracing him. Even though he couldn't understand her, Luna whispered something to him. It'll be okay, Bat. I promise I'll come back. I promise I'll see you again. I'll make everything right. The two wandered around the cave trails for what seemed like hours, not even sure they'd memorized the map correctly. Hivewing and a Silkwing. Such an unlikely duo. If you'd have asked me a month ago if I would ever be walking side by side with a Hivewing, I probably would have laughed. But they're not all bad. Cricket has taught me that, and I feel awful I hadn't figured it out sooner. I can't judge an entire tribe based on some of their mistakes. The walk was mostly silent, with each of their minds racing with possibilities. Luna nearly bumped into Cricket when she stopped, seemingly out of nowhere. When she looked in front of her, she saw what had caught Cricket's eye. They had found the abyss. It was much larger than Luna anticipated, and the gigantic ravine seemed to stretch as long as nearly the entire underground cave system itself. Luna walked towards it, mesmerized by the darkness. She felt like if she got too close to the edge, that she would fall forever, and the thought caused her to shiver. Cricket's mouth was wide open, and she stared into the abyss with curious eyes. Do you think it really goes on forever? Luna couldn't answer, and just found herself looking into the darkness. It looked so welcoming, and she swore she could hear whispers beckoning her to it. She shook her head, dismissing it as her imagination. Some creepy hole in the ground can't talk. But in a world where a plant was able to mind control dragons, nothing seemed impossible anymore. Before Luna could say anything else, the ground started to shake again. Fear overtook her, and Luna grabbed a hold of Cricket and dived into a corner far away from the abyss. This time, the reveling movement was louder than it had been previously, and Luna's heart sank. Neither of them could react before a gigantic explosion blasted its way through one of the walls, revealing a horde of dragons swarming in. A green and gold leafwing towered over Luna, who was crouched in her hiding spot. The white eyes of an infected Sundew stared at her back, no emotion hiding beneath them. "I found you," Wasp's voice taunted. Sundew really was taken. But what about the others? As though to answer in thought, Luna's friends appeared out of the hole that was blasted through the cave wall using Sundew's leaf speak. Luna recognized the plant that had been grown to make the hole. It was the little seedling they had found earlier. Keebly, Moon, Lynx, and Pineapple stared back at her, their eyes an unsettling hue of white. "I don't think you know as much about your friends as you thought you did," Wasp Sundew said, slowly approaching Luna. "Because of your arrogance, I have the most powerful and most dangerous leafwing in Pantellarite under my control, and the all-powerful ability of mind reading." Mind reading? Wasp projected her mind in the body of Moonwatcher, and Luna felt her heart nearly stop. Moon lied to me this whole time? She's not just a seer. She can read minds. Did she not feel like she could trust me enough with her secret? Luna found herself feeling a twinge of anger, though realized she had been the same way about Cricket. I didn't trust her enough to confide in her. Maybe I'm just like how I thought she was. "Oh, poor little silkwing dragonet," Wasp cooed, switching back to Sundew's body. "Your little friends didn't care about you after all." "You're wrong," Luna replied, a hint of venom in her voice. "So what if I am? At least they're all here to see you fail. Oh, they should have never placed their faith in a pathetic dragonet that doesn't even have the guts to kill. All you silkwings are the same. You ramble on and on about peace, and you don't go about keeping it. There's no such thing as peace. It's the biggest lie that's ever been told. There'll always be some sort of a feud, whether it be over more land or more food, or whatever dragons have complained about for centuries. Peace is a lie." "No, it isn't!" Cricket shouted, and every head in the room turned towards her. "So this is the hive wing that escaped my control," Wasp muttered to herself, staring closely at her. "You're wrong, Wasp," she continued, ignoring her statement. "Peace doesn't exist because of dragons like you. You tell everyone that you're helping, but you're not. And if you manage to mind control every dragon on the continent, deep down you'll know that you were wrong. When you die, nobody is going to mourn you. This mind is just going to rule in your place, leaving the world void of any emotion. You'll die knowing it is your fault." Wasp laughed to herself, the sound echoing off the cave walls. "I love how you're referring to continents as singular. I know Pyra exists. Did you honestly think I'd go this long without finding out your little secret? Sundew had the map, and now that she's mine, so is it." Luna felt her heart beating wildly with panic. She's not bluffing. She wouldn't know about the map existing if she didn't have it. Cricket seemed to be at a loss for words, and she looked over at Luna for what to do next. It pained her that she didn't have a reply, and all she could do was swallow the bile that was rising up her dry throat. "Luna, you're the one dragon that has ruined every single one of my plans. But you know what? Your tampering has made things better. If you hadn't washed up on the shore of this other continent, they would have never known any of this was going on. I wouldn't have known they existed. They would have lived happily, and peaceful lives if not for your foolishness. This is your fault, and I'd like to thank you. Without your rash decision to try and use your flame silk to save your friends, you'd have never left the continent. Things would have been vastly different. Sundew would have never gone on a rescue mission to save her friends, and I never would have gotten her power. I owe my victory to you, and you have my undying gratitude. She knew it was true. No matter how many lies Luna tried to tell herself that moment, she couldn't come up with one that she would believe. The world was ending, and it was all her fault. Wasp saw her shaking and began to laugh manically. The sight was twisted, especially seeing Wasp's laugh come out of Sundew's body. She couldn't get herself to look into Sundew's white, emotionless eyes. Luna looked away in shame, not even able to shift her gaze to Cricket. Maybe Wasp was right, she thought. Nobody should have put their faith in me. Now I'm all alone. And it's all my fault. None of this would have happened if it weren't for me. Cricket noticed Luna's defeated expression. She closed her eyes, breathed quietly to herself, and sprang up out of her crouched position. Luna looked up and watched Cricket try her hardest to fight her friends. If she's brave enough to do that, I can be too. It's just like what Cricket said. Be the bravest you've ever been. Luna jumped up suddenly, following after Cricket. She didn't want to hurt her friends, so she avoided using her flame silk. Instead, she spun soft, harmless silk, webbing up their talons so they'd be temporarily immobile. Wasp was outraged and continually switched in and out of each of their bodies. Pineapple shot deadly venom right at Cricket, and she screamed, just narrowly dodging it. Keebly's venomous steel bar was thrashing around wildly. Luna had to jump out of the way to avoid it. I don't want to hurt my friends. But Luna didn't know what to do. They were all rushing towards her and Cricket, and they didn't stand a chance if they didn't fight back. What Wasp said about me not having the guts to kill in order to save a life is true. But I can't hurt them. They're just under Wasp's control. Tsunami tackled Luna to the ground, slashing her claws into her underbelly. She nearly missed a blast of frostbite that Link had shot at her. Luna shrieked, trying to throw her off. When she looked over at Cricket, she was being thrown to the ground by Keebly and Moon, with Wasp using Moonwatcher's mind reading in order to read Cricket's thoughts. You silly little dragonette, she teased. I know every single move you have planned by reading it in your mind. You'll never be safe. Wasp switched back into Sundew's body, then turned to face Luna. The two dragons were each pinned to the ground by their friends, both too scared of hurting them to fight back. Luna noticed slash marks all over Cricket's body, and saw just as many on her when she looked down. I didn't even notice I was bleeding. I know how much you miss Blue and Swordtail, Wasp began, so why not have a little family reunion? Luna froze. Suddenly out of the hole that had been smashed through the wall came Blue and Swordtail, their eyes entirely white. You know how cruel it would be to have Blue kill his own one true love? Wasp asked, laughing to herself. We all love a good show, don't we? No! Luna screamed, trying to fight her out of Tsunami's grip. She knew what Wasp was going to have him do. Blue walked over towards Cricket, his expression emotionless. Kill her. And he obeyed. Cricket looked up into Blue's soulless eyes, her expression pleading for him to do something. But deep down both of them knew Blue was trying his hardest to fight the other man's control, that he was forced to watch himself kill his own love. Blue stabbed his claws into Cricket's underbelly, then pulled them out as her blood stained his claws. He continued stabbing her time after time, ripping apart the wound with his claws. Luna was screaming, her voice completely breaking. Tears were rolling down her snout, and she tried to squirm away to rescue Cricket. Cricket cried, looking up at Blue one last time. I know you're in there, Blue. When Luna saves everybody, don't worry. I know it was never your fault. Nothing you could do would ever make me stop loving you. Luna's entire body was shaking. Cricket, please, no! Take me, not her! I deserve to die! Not her! Aw, well, where's the fun in that? Wasp coldly responded. Cricket allowed the tears to flow freely, though looked back at Luna one last time. It's okay, Luna. I promise it will be okay. Didn't I tell you I'd rather die trying than die knowing I never tried? She chuckled softly to herself, looking down at her bloody wound. Just tell my mom I love her, okay? If you ever meet my dad once you save everyone, let him know too. No, you're going to tell them yourself, Luna cried, finally throwing Tsunami off of her. The mind-control dragon started to move, but Wasp stopped them. I want to see this, she whispered. Cricket, I can't do this alone. We're Talent United, remember? You can't die! Hey, Luna? Cricket said suddenly, her face slightly grimacing in pain as the color drained from her face. You're so brave. I know you're strong enough to save everyone. I've seen you do it. I don't care what Wasp tells you. I don't know what I'm going to do without you, Cricket. I'm not brave like Tsunami or Sundew. I'm not smart like Keebly and the others. I'm just Luna, the stupid Silkwing who doomed her entire world over selfishly wanting to prove herself. Luna wiped the tears from her eyes, speaking only in sobs. No, Cricket asserted confidently. You're Luna, the most brave dragon I've ever met. You're Luna, the dragon who never gave up. The dragon who risked her life to save her friends and her tribe. Remember what Ren said. Don't lose your heart, no matter how much Wasp tries to break you. None of this is your fault, Luna. Don't forget that. Cricket then went silent, her breaths becoming less and less frequent until her chest finally became still. Blood gushing out of Cricket's wound finally slowed, leaving an empty hole in her chest. And Luna broke down. I promised her that she would see blue again. I promised her I would fix this, Luna shouted, cupping Cricket's face in her talons. I promised everyone that I would save them, that I would be the hero they needed. I couldn't even save my best friend. Past Luna would have been shocked by the way she addressed Cricket, but now she felt shame for all the times she had judged her for actions she hadn't even done. This is my fault! Luna screamed, sobbing more than she ever had in her life. At that moment, she didn't care about putting on her mask of happiness. She didn't even care if Wasp killed her right now. Luna heard faint clapping in the distance, then looked over to the edge of the abyss to see Wasp Sundew. Well done, Luna, the wondrous flame silk! Although, you're not too fantastic now, are you? You monster! She shrieked, launching herself towards Wasp. Bumblebee's never going to have a mother because of you! Blue's never going to be the same dragon again! All because of you! You know this isn't my fault. It's yours. Such a pity the dragons in distress tend to blame someone else for their wrongdoings. I thought you were better than this, Luna. All of a sudden, the mind-controlled Blue pushed Cricket's corpse off the edge of the abyss, causing it to fall into the seemingly endless chasm. No! Luna threw up at her feet, shaking vigorously. Cricket will never be able to have a proper burial. The thought stung her more than anything else in the world, and Luna angrily launched herself towards Wasp. She only cackled in response. I can't wait to see Blue's face when he realizes he was the one to kill her, and Swordtail's face when he realizes he's going to be the one to kill you. With that, Wasp jumped into the abyss, flapping her wings against the rush of air. She disappeared almost in an instant, the darkness seemingly swallowing her whole. And then it hit her. She's going to use Sundew's leaf speak to spread the breath of evil to both continents. Luna had no other choice, and dived right into the abyss alongside Wasp. She had been falling for so long that she couldn't even figure out if she was even still falling. The rush of air numbed her scales, and the darkness was everywhere. It was almost suffocating. Nevertheless, Luna kept spiraling down into the abyss. She became accustomed to the emptiness she felt while doing so, and began to crave it. Luna didn't have to think about what had just happened. It was almost like the sweet release of death, though a fragment of her soul was still trapped on Pantala. When Luna eventually saw the end of the abyss, she used her wings to slow her fall. She hit the vine-covered floor with a thump, and looked around to find where Wasp had gone. This is my last chance to save the world. When Luna thought she saw a limp hive-wing tail sticking out of a pile of vines, she immediately turned away from it, disgusted and upset. I hope that wasn't Cricket, she thought. Suddenly, she heard shuffling and the sound of talons scraping against a cold, rocky surface. She's here. Luna heard the sound of a dragon muttering, then bolted into the room in question. Wasp, still in the body of Sundew, was using her leaf speak to grow what remained of the breath of evil. It was just a small vine, though it began to grow larger and larger at Wasp's command. Wasp, stop! She turned around slowly, facing Luna with a dark grimace on her face. You're not going to take this away from me. With that, the Othermind grew so large in the span of a second that it sent Luna flying towards the wall, causing her to hit her head on it. So dazed by the collision, she managed to look up. The vine continued to stalk its way up, almost as though it were a gigantic beanstalk. Wasp rode her way up as it soared higher and higher up the abyss, leaving a dumbfounded Luna trapped. I've failed. The thought stung her more than she had anticipated. There was no one else who could save the day. She was their last hope, and she had failed. I promised Bat I would come back for him. I promised Cricket that she would see the real Blue again. I promised everyone that I would beat Wasp. It's just like she told me in my nightmare. Nobody should have put their faith in me. I failed them all. My tribe, my friends, my family, my home. And I lost. Cricket died thinking she wasn't a hero. She died thinking I would save everyone. She died because she put her faith in me. Luna sat down on the rough stone floor, spinning a stream of flame silk and holding it in her talons. The small light lit up the darkened area, and Luna dropped her head down. All she was left to think about was how Wasp was infecting the entire continent with the enlarged breath of evil, and then spreading it to Pyra, controlling the armies of every queen there. "I'm sorry," she whispered to herself, letting the tears fall. "I'm so sorry." Anyway, that's pretty much it for this video. Okay, I know this one was super depressing, and I'm really sorry. And oh boy, I spent way too much time into this. Seriously, this script is 29 pages. I'm very burnt out right now, and this is way too much work to put into a project I'm not happy with. Nevertheless, I hope you guys enjoyed. What do you guys think? Let me know down below. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.